Please, help my mom. She can't stop shaking. The voice was small, weak, and full of panic. It came from somewhere in the darkness beyond the storm. Daniel Carter froze. The wind howled across the empty mining valley, throwing sand and rain against the metal walls of his repair station. Thunder cracked across the sky, shaking the ground beneath his boots. He had lived on the edge of this colony for 5 quiet years. Nothing ever happened here except broken mining machines and tired workers asking for repairs. But this voice was different. It wasn't human. Daniel stepped slowly toward the open doorway of his garage and looked out into the storm. Lightning flashed. For a split second, the valley lit up like daylight, and Daniel saw them. 2 figures, standing near the crash shape of a small spacecraft half buried in the sand. One of them was a child. The other was lying on the ground, shaking violently. Another flash of lightning. The little girl looked up directly at Daniel. Her skin shimmered a pale silver color under the rain. Large glowing eyes stared at him with desperate fear. She was clearly not human. But the fear in her face was something every human could understand. Please, she cried again, running toward him through the storm. My mom is dying. Daniel's heart began pounding. Aliens were not supposed to land in this sector. The colony law was very clear about that. Any unknown species had to be reported immediately to the colonial authority. And Daniel knew exactly what would happen if he reported this. Crash, soldiers, quarantine teams, experiments, interrogations. The mother would never leave alive. The child would disappear forever. The girl reached him, slipping in the mud and grabbing his jacket with shaking hands. Please, she begged again, her voice breaking. She won't stop shaking. I tried everything. I don't know what to do. Daniel looked past her. About 20 meters away, near the smoking wreck of the ship, the alien mother was lying on the ground. Her body trembled violently, like powerful electric shocks were running through her. Her breathing looked wrong. Sharp, fast, painful. Daniel had repaired machines his whole life, not living beings. But even he could see that something was terribly wrong. Another thunderclap shook the valley. The girl's small fingers tightened on his sleeve. Please don't leave us, she whispered. For a moment, Daniel didn't move. His mind raced. If he helped them, he could get into serious trouble with the colony authorities. If he refused, the woman would die right there in the storm, and the child would watch it happen. Lightning flashed again, lighting the girl's face. Tears mixed with rain on her silver skin. She looked so small, so helpless. Daniel let out a slow breath. All right, he said quietly. The girl's eyes widened with hope. Daniel grabbed a medical kit from the wall and pulled on his storm jacket. Take me to her. The girl ran back toward the crash site, Daniel following close behind through the rain. As they reached the mother, Daniel finally saw her clearly. She was taller than any human woman, with long dark hair flowing across the wet ground. Strange glowing patterns moved slowly across her pale skin like living light. But right now, none of that mattered. Her body was shaking harder than before. Her breathing came in painful gasps, and her eyes were barely open. The little girl dropped to her knees beside her. Mom, I found someone, she said softly. The alien woman's eyes moved weakly toward Daniel. For a moment, they locked eyes. And in that moment, Daniel felt something strange. Not fear, not anger, just exhaustion and desperation. The woman tried to speak, but her voice came out as a weak whisper. Human. Then another violent tremor ran through her body. Daniel knelt beside her quickly and opened his medical kit, but the moment he looked at her closely, his stomach tightened. He had treated injured miners before. Broken bones, radiation sickness, severe burns. But he had never seen anything like this. Her veins were glowing faintly beneath her skin. Her muscles twitched uncontrollably, and her body temperature felt dangerously high. Daniel frowned. This isn't normal sickness, he muttered. The girl looked at him with wide eyes. Can you help her? Daniel hesitated. He didn't even know what species they were. Human medicine might not work. It might even make things worse. But doing nothing would definitely kill her. Daniel looked at the little girl again. Her entire world was lying on the ground in front of him, and she was trusting a stranger from another species to save it. Daniel closed the medical kit slowly. "Tell me something," he said carefully. The girl nodded quickly. "What happened to her?" The girl swallowed nervously. "We were traveling through this system when pirates attacked us," she said. "Their weapons hit our ship. Something inside the engine exploded. Mom pushed me into the escape pod, but she stayed behind to control the crash landing." Daniel looked back at the wrecked ship. Smoke still rose from the broken metal. "How long has she been shaking like this?" he asked. "Since the crash," the girl said. "It keeps getting worse." Daniel looked down at the alien woman again. Her body jerked suddenly, harder than before. Her breathing became faster, more desperate. Daniel's instincts screamed one terrifying possibility: radiation. If the engine core had ruptured during the crash, she might have been exposed to something far worse than anything human medicine could handle. Daniel slowly stood up. The girl immediately grabbed his arm again. "Please don't leave." Daniel looked down at her. "I'm not leaving," he said firmly. But his voice was serious now. "Your mother isn't just sick." The girl's face went pale. "What do you mean?" Daniel looked back at the wrecked alien ship, then at the violently shaking woman on the ground, and finally back at the terrified child. "If I'm right," he said quietly, "your mother isn't dying from injuries." Another violent tremor shook the woman's body. Daniel's expression hardened. "She's dying from something much worse." The girl's voice trembled. What is it?" Daniel took a slow breath. "Whatever it is," he said, "if we don't stop it soon." He looked down at the shaking alien mother. "She won't survive the night." And deep inside, Daniel feared something even worse. Because if his guess was correct, saving her might be impossible. Rain kept falling hard, drumming on the broken metal of the alien ship. The wind pushed sand across the valley like waves in a dark ocean. Daniel knelt beside the alien mother again, trying to stay calm while his mind worked fast. Her body shook violently every few seconds. Each tremor looked stronger than the last. The little girl was crying quietly beside her. She held her mother's hand tightly, as if letting go might make her disappear forever. "Mom, please stay with me," she whispered. Daniel opened his medical scanner from the kit. It was designed for humans, but it was the only tool he had. He slowly moved it over the alien woman's body. The scanner beeped wildly. Numbers flashed on the small screen. Daniel frowned. "This can't be right," he murmured. The girl looked up quickly. "What is it? Is she getting better?" Daniel hesitated. He didn't want to scare the child, but lying wouldn't help either. "Her body temperature is extremely high," he said carefully, "and her nervous system is firing like crazy. Something inside her body is completely out of control." Another violent tremor ran through the woman. Her back arched painfully, and a faint glowing light spread through the strange patterns on her skin. The girl gasped. "It's getting worse." Daniel nodded slowly. "Yes, much worse." He stood up and looked toward the crashed ship. The broken hull was open like a wound, with pieces of metal scattered across the sand. "If the engine exploded like you said," Daniel asked, "did it release anything? Radiation? Energy? Gas?" The girl wiped her tears and tried to think. I don't know," she said. "But when the engine exploded, there was a bright blue light everywhere. Mom was inside the control room." Daniel's heart sank. Blue energy. It confirmed his worst fear. The alien engine must have released some kind of powerful energy burst during the crash, and the mother had taken the full exposure. Daniel looked down at her again. Her breathing had become rough and uneven now. Time was running out. He closed the scanner and turned to the girl. "Listen carefully," he said. The girl nodded quickly. "I don't know your species," Daniel continued, "but if this is radiation poisoning, her cells are breaking apart right now. That shaking is her nervous system collapsing." The girl's eyes filled with fear again. "Can you stop it?" Daniel looked back at the wrecked ship. "Maybe, he said slowly. Hope suddenly flashed in the girl's face. Really? But only if we find something inside your ship, Daniel continued. Something that can stabilize whatever energy hit her. The girl stood up immediately. Yes, there might be medical equipment inside. Daniel grabbed a flashlight from his kit. And we need to move fast. They both ran toward the broken spacecraft. Up close, the ship looked even worse than Daniel expected. The front half had been torn open during the crash, and sparks still jumped from broken wires. Smoke drifted from the engine section. Daniel climbed carefully through a broken opening in the hull. Inside, the ship was dark and tilted sideways. Panels had fallen from the walls. Strange alien screens flickered weakly. The air smelled sharp and metallic. The girl climbed in behind him. Our medical room is near the back, she said, pointing down a narrow hallway. Daniel moved slowly through the damaged corridor. The floor was uneven, and pieces of broken equipment were scattered everywhere. Suddenly, the girl stopped. Wait. Daniel turned. What is it? She pointed toward a cracked wall panel. A faint blue glow was leaking from inside it. Daniel stepped closer and shined his flashlight. The metal around the panel had melted slightly. Energy radiation, the same blue glow the girl had described. Daniel stepped back quickly. That's the engine core energy, he said. If she was near this during the crash. He didn't finish the sentence. The girl's voice was small. Is it bad? Daniel nodded. Very bad. They continued deeper into the ship. Finally, they reached a circular room, filled with strange devices and glowing containers. The girl ran to a tall cabinet and opened it. Inside were several small crystal tubes filled with silver liquid. This, she said quickly. These are stabilizers. Mom uses them when we travel through high-energy space storms. Daniel took one of the tubes carefully. The liquid inside shimmered softly. This might work, he said. But as he turned the tube in, the light, his stomach tightened. There was a crack in the crystal container, and the silver liquid was slowly leaking out. Daniel checked the others. Every single tube was damaged. The girl stared at him with growing panic. What's wrong? Daniel exhaled slowly. These were your best chance to save her. The girl's voice shook. Were? Daniel showed her the cracked tubes. They're broken. The girl's face went pale. No, that can't be. She grabbed one of the tubes and shook it gently, hoping something might still be inside. But only a few drops of the silver liquid remained. Tears filled her glowing eyes again. That was the only medicine that could help her. Daniel looked at the damaged tubes, thinking hard. Then his eyes moved toward the glowing blue. Cracks in the ship's walls. An idea slowly formed in his mind. It was risky. Very risky, but it might be their only chance. Daniel looked back at the girl. Tell me something, he said. She sniffed and nodded. Your stabilizer medicine, Daniel asked. What does it do exactly? It calms the energy inside our bodies, she said. It stops energy storms from destroying our cells. Daniel looked again at the glowing engine radiation leaking through the ship. Then back at the almost empty stabilizer tube. He spoke quietly. What if we make more? The girl blinked in confusion. How? Daniel held up the cracked tube. If this medicine controls energy, he pointed toward the glowing engine core, then maybe the energy that hurt your mother is the same energy we need to save her. The girl stared at him. You mean use the engine energy? Daniel nodded slowly. If we can stabilize it. The girl's voice trembled. Will it work? Daniel looked back toward the wrecked corridor, where the deadly blue glow pulsed faintly. He didn't know. In fact, the plan sounded completely insane. But they were out of options. Daniel looked down at the stabilizer tube again. Then at the desperate alien child, and finally toward the dying mother outside in the storm. If we don't try, he said quietly, she dies anyway. The girl swallowed hard, and she nodded. Tell me what to do. Daniel took a deep breath, because what he was about to attempt had never been done before. And if he made one small mistake, the energy inside that ship could kill all of them. The broken spacecraft creaked loudly as the storm raged outside. Wind pushed through the damaged hull, making loose panels shake and bang against the walls. Daniel stood in the medical room, staring at the cracked stabilizer tube in his hand. The silver liquid inside glowed faintly, barely enough to cover the bottom of the crystal dot. It was almost empty. The little alien girl stood beside him, watching every movement he made. Her glowing eyes were filled with fear, but also with something else. Hope, can we really make more medicine? She asked quietly. Daniel didn't answer immediately. He walked toward the cracked wall, where the faint, blue engine energy leaked through like glowing mist. The air near it felt strange, almost electric. He held the stabilizer tube close to the glow, studying how the silver liquid reacted. For a moment, nothing happened. Then suddenly the liquid shimmered. Tiny waves of light moved across its surface. Daniel's eyes widened slightly. Okay? He whispered. That's interesting. The girl stepped closer. What does that mean? It means the stabilizer reacts to this energy, Daniel said. Your medicine was probably designed to absorb and control energy like this. But we only have a few drops left, the girl said nervously. Daniel nodded, which means we have to be very careful. He looked around the room and found a small metal container that had fallen from one of the shelves. It was dented but still sealed. This might work. He muttered. He carefully opened it and cleaned the inside with a sterile wipe from his kit. Then he slowly poured the few remaining drops of stabilizer liquid into the container. The silver liquid spread across the bottom like liquid light. The girl watched closely. What now? Daniel looked again at the glowing engine energy. We feed it a tiny amount of that energy, he explained. If the stabilizer absorbs it the right way, it might grow stronger. And if it doesn't? The girl asked. Daniel gave a small, serious smile. Then the energy will overload it. The girl swallowed nervously. What happens then? Daniel looked directly at her. It explodes. Her eyes widened. Explodes? Small explosion, Daniel corrected calmly. Probably. The girl didn't look comforted. Daniel walked slowly toward the cracked wall. Blue light pulsed softly from the damaged engine conduit. The air hummed with strange power. He carefully held the container near the glowing crack. Just a little, he whispered. A thin stream of blue energy drifted into the container. A second. Nothing happened. Then suddenly the silver liquid began to glow brighter. Tiny sparks of light danced inside it. The girl gasped. It's working. Daniel watched closely, adjusting the distance between the container and the energy leak. The liquid slowly grew, brighter. But then something changed. The container began to vibrate. Daniel's expression tightened. That's not good. The girl stepped back. What's happening? The energy is rising too fast, Daniel said quickly. It's becoming unstable. The vibration became stronger. The glowing liquid started swirling wildly inside the container. The girl's voice shook. It's going to explode, isn't it? Daniel quickly pulled the container away from the energy source. The vibration stopped. The liquid calmed again. Both of them stared at it silently. After a moment, the girl asked quietly, Did we fail? Daniel shook his head slowly. No. He held the container closer to the light. The silver liquid was now glowing brighter than before. There was definitely more of it. Not much, but more than the few drops they started with. It worked, Daniel said softly. The girl's face lit up with hope again. Really? Yes, Daniel replied. But we need a lot more if we want to save your mother. He looked back toward the glowing crack. But now we know the limit. What limit? The girl asked. Daniel lifted the container slightly. If we push the energy too fast, the stabilizer becomes unstable. So we go slower? She said. Daniel nodded. Exactly. They spent the next several minutes repeating the process. Tiny bit of energy. Wait. Pull. Back. Let the liquid stabilize. Again. And again. Slowly, the silver liquid inside the container began to grow. The room filled with a soft silver glow. The girl watched in amazement. You're actually doing it, she whispered. Daniel smiled faintly. Don't celebrate yet. He carefully sealed the container. They now had a small vial of glowing silver. Medicine. It still might not be enough, but it was something. Daniel stood up. Let's go. They climbed out of the wrecked ship and ran back into the storm. The alien. Mother was still lying where they left her. But now the shaking was worse. Her body jerked violently with each breath. The girl rushed to her side. Mom, we're back. Daniel knelt quickly and opened the container. The silver medicine glowed softly. In the rain. This is our only shot, he said quietly. The girl watched anxiously. Will it stop the shaking? Daniel hesitated. I hope so. He carefully lifted the alien woman's head. Her eyes opened slightly. Weak. Barely conscious, but still alive. Daniel slowly poured a small amount of the glowing liquid into her mouth. For a moment nothing happened. The storm continued to roar around them. Then suddenly the glowing patterns on her skin began to shine brighter. Her body jerked once. Hard. The girl gasped. Is it working? Daniel watched closely. The shaking slowed slightly. Just a little. Hope flickered in his chest. But then something unexpected happened. The glow on her skin suddenly changed color, from soft silver to deep, dangerous blue. Daniel's eyes widened. That's not right. The girl's voice trembled. What do you mean? The woman's body suddenly lifted slightly off the ground as another violent tremor hit her. But this time it wasn't just shaking. The air around her began to vibrate. Small stones on the ground started to rise slowly into the air. Daniel felt a chill run through his body. The medicine hadn't stabilized the energy. It had activated it. The alien woman's eyes suddenly opened, but they were no longer weak. They were glowing bright blue, and the energy around her was growing stronger every second. The storm seemed to pause. Rain still fell. Thunder still rolled, but something about the air had changed. The alien woman slowly rose from the ground. Not standing. Floating. Small rocks lifted around her. Dust spiraled upward like invisible hands. Were pulling everything into the air. The blue light in her eyes burned brighter than lightning. Daniel stepped back instinctively. That's not normal, he whispered. The little girl looked both terrified and confused. Mom? The woman's shaking suddenly stopped. Completely. Her body became perfectly still as she hovered a few feet above the wet ground. Then she spoke. Her voice was no longer weak. It was deep, calm, and strangely powerful. Human. Daniel felt strange pressure in his chest, like the air itself had grown heavier. Yes, he said cautiously. The woman's glowing eyes focused on him. You should not have done that. The girl grabbed Daniel's arm nervously. What's wrong with her? Before Daniel could answer, the woman slowly descended back to the ground. The floating rocks dropped and rolled across the sand, but the blue glow on her skin remained. She looked different now. Stronger. Awake. The girl ran toward her. Mom, you're okay. But the woman gently stopped her. Stay back, Lyra. The girl froze. Daniel noticed something strange. The girl had never said her name before. The woman turned her glowing eyes back toward Daniel. You believed I was dying. Daniel frowned. You weren't? The woman looked down at her own hands, watching the blue energy move beneath her skin. For a moment, yes, she said quietly, but that was only the beginning. Daniel's instincts screamed that something was very wrong. What do you mean? He asked. The woman slowly stood up. The blue glow around her body grew brighter. The engine explosion did not poison me, she explained. It awakened something. The girl looked confused. What do you mean, Mom? The woman finally looked at her daughter. And for the first time, her expression was not fear. It was concern. For generations, she said slowly, our species has sealed away a dangerous power inside our bodies. Daniel crossed his arms. Let me guess. The engine energy triggered it. The woman nodded. Double quotes, yes. The girl shook her head. But Mom, that power was forbidden. Our scientists said it destroys everything. Daniel looked between them. Okay. Someone explain what's happening here. The woman turned back toward him. What you see now, she said calmly, is the true form of my species. Daniel blinked. You mean You've been hiding this the whole time? Yes. The girl looked scared. But Mom, you told me. That power was unstable. That anyone who awakens it loses control. The woman didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked directly at Daniel again. You gave me stabilizer energy, she said. Daniel nodded slowly. Yeah. I thought it would stop the damage. It did more than that, the woman replied. The blue light around her hands grew brighter. It stabilized the power. Daniel's eyes widened. You mean that medicine I made actually worked? The woman nodded. For the first time in our history, this power is under control. Daniel rubbed the back of his neck. Well, that's good news, right? But the girl's face had gone pale. Mom, she whispered, if the power is awake, then the pirates will find us. Daniel frowned. What pirates? The woman's expression darkened. The same pirates who attacked our ship. Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. You mean they're still out there? The woman slowly looked toward the sky. Yes. As if the universe itself had heard her words, a distant rumble echoed above the clouds. Not thunder. Engines. Daniel single quotes, S. Stomach dropped. Bright red lights suddenly pierced through the storm clouds above the valley. Several large ships slowly descended from the sky. The girl gasped. They found us. Daniel counted at least 5 heavy attack ships hovering above them. Weapons glowed along their hulls. This just keeps getting better, he muttered. The alien woman's eyes burned with blue light as she stared at the ships. They followed. The energy signal. Daniel crossed his arms. And I'm guessing that signal is coming from you. Yes. The girl grabbed her mother's arm. Mom, we have to run. But the woman didn't move. Instead, she looked calmly at the ships surrounding them. Then she said something that made Daniel's blood run cold. No. The girl stared at her. What? The woman's voice was quiet, but filled with power. For years we have run from them. She slowly lifted her glowing hands. Blue energy crackled through the air. But tonight, Daniel suddenly understood. Oh, no. The woman looked at the approaching pirate ships. They will run from us. Daniel rubbed his face in disbelief. You've got to be kidding me. The sky above them roared as the first pirate ship aimed its weapons. The girl looked at Daniel nervously. Can she really fight them? Daniel looked at the glowing alien woman, then at the fleet of armed ships above them. He let out a long breath. I have absolutely no idea. But deep down, he realized something. The alien woman he had tried to save was no longer the one who needed saving. The real question now was much more terrifying. What would happen if she won? The pirate ships roared above the storm like dark metal monsters. Red lights cut through the rain. Heavy cannons slowly aimed toward the valley floor. Daniel stood frozen for a moment, staring up at the fleet hovering over them. 5 ships, each. One armed. Each one ready to fire. And standing beneath them was one awakened alien woman. This is insane, Daniel muttered under his breath. The little girl Lyra held his arm tightly. Her small hands trembled. Mom can't fight all of them, she whispered. But the alien woman didn't move. She stood calmly in the ring, blue energy glowing across her skin like living lightning. Her eyes were fixed on the ships. Waiting. Then a loud voice echoed from the sky. Unidentified survivor. A rough voice shouted through a loudspeaker. You are surrounded. Surrender. Immediately. One of the pirate ships lowered closer. Its weapons glowed brighter. We know who you are, the voice continued. Your species carries the core energy. Deliver it to us, and we might let the child live. Lyra gasped. Daniel clenched his fists. The alien woman's expression did not change. Instead, she slowly lifted her head toward the ships. You attacked? U.S., she said calmly, her voice carrying across the valley. You hunted us across 3 systems. Blue energy crackled around her hands. And now you threaten my child. The pirate voice laughed. You misunderstand your situation. 1 ship against 5? You are not in control here. Daniel leaned closer to Lyra and whispered, Your mom seems pretty confident. Lyra whispered back nervously. She's never used this power before. Daniel blinked. Wait, what? But before he could say anything else, the first pirate ship fired. A bright beam of energy shot down toward the ground. Lyra screamed, "Mom!" But the alien woman didn't move. The beam struck the ground in front of her. And then something impossible happened. The beam stopped. Frozen. Suspended in the air like a glowing ribbon. Daniel's jaw dropped. No way. The woman slowly raised one hand. The beam bent. Curved. Then shot back upward into the sky. It struck the pirate ship that fired it. The explosion lit up the storm clouds like a second sun. The damaged ship spun wildly before crashing into the desert hills far away. The remaining pirate ships went silent. Daniel stared at the sky. Well, he said quietly, that's one down. The other ships immediately opened fire. 4 beams shot down at the same time. The alien woman spread her arms. The blue energy around her exploded outward like a shockwave. The beams shattered against the invisible energy field. The sky filled with sparks. Then she lifted both hands toward the fleet. The air itself seemed to bend. The pirate ships suddenly shook violently. One by one, they were pulled downward like invisible gravity had grabbed them. Daniel could hear the pirates shouting through their radios. What is this? Engines failing. Pull up! Pull up! But it was too late. The ships slammed into the desert ground around the valley, sending huge clouds of sand into the storm. Silence followed. Only the rain remained. Daniel slowly looked around. 4 pirate ships destroyed in seconds. He turned to Lyra. Your mom is officially the most dangerous person I've ever met. Lyra smiled weakly. I told you she was special. The blue energy around the alien woman slowly faded. Her feet touched the ground again. For a moment, she looked tired. Very tired. Daniel walked toward her carefully. You okay? He asked. She nodded slowly. Yes. Then she looked directly at him. But only because of you. Daniel raised an eyebrow. Me? You stabilized the power, she explained. Without your help, it would have destroyed me and everything around me. Lyra hugged her mother tightly. I thought I was going to lose you. The woman gently held her daughter. You didn't. Daniel looked up at the storm clouds. The pirate fleet was gone. The valley was quiet again. But he knew something had changed forever. The woman turned back to him. Our species has hidden this power for centuries, she said. We feared it. Daniel crossed his arms. Seems pretty useful to me. She smiled slightly. Perhaps, with the right guidance. Then she said something that surprised him. We will rebuild our ship soon. Daniel nodded. Good plan. But before we leave, she continued, I want to offer you something. Daniel tilted his head. What kind of something? She looked at him seriously. A place among our people. Daniel blinked. You mean, leave Earth? You helped save not only my life, she said, but possibly the future of my entire species. Lyra looked excited. You could come. With us. Humans and our people working together. Daniel looked at the destroyed pirate ships around the valley. Then at the glowing alien mother. Then at the hopeful little girl. He thought for a moment, and he smiled. Well, he said, I was getting pretty bored fixing mining machines anyway. Lyra laughed happily. The alien woman extended her hand. Daniel shook it, and far above the storm clouds, the stars shined quietly. That night, one human mechanic made a simple choice. Help a scared child. Save a dying mother. He never expected that. Choice would change the fate of 2 entire species. But sometimes, the smallest act of kindness can awaken the greatest power in the universe.